The low, satisfied purr of the engine faded as I cut the ignition. My palm lingered on the leather-wrapped steering wheel, tracing the subtle stitches. Across the polished hood, the warm glow of the garage lights spilled over 10 gleaming supercars, each one a piece of art, each one mine. Somewhere between the glassy reflection of my Bugatti's fender and the smooth click of my Louboutin heels on the epoxy floor, I heard it again, my sister's voice, sharp and certain, from years ago. "You can't even afford a car, Emily." I slipped my phone from the pocket of my silk blouse. One new message. "Harper, I'm in town. Let's catch up." For a moment, I just stared at the screen, the corners of my mouth curling in a slow, private smile. The last time we spoke, I was living in a cramped apartment with a fridge that hummed louder than my bank account. Now, my garage was worth more than some small towns. But Harper didn't know that.
No one in my family did.
I'd made sure of it. The faint scent of Italian leather and high-octane fuel wrapped around me as I typed a short reply. "Sure. Come by tonight." She had no idea what she was walking into. 5 years ago, my life smelled more like burnt coffee and bus exhaust than polished leather. I was 23, living in a shoebox studio apartment in Phoenix, the kind where your bed, your stove, and your laundry pile could all have a conversation without raising their voices. My car? Non-existent. My commute was a sweaty, unpredictable bus ride that took 45 minutes on a good day, an hour and a half if the driver was in the mood to test my patience. That night, I'd agreed, against my better judgment, to go to a family dinner at my mom's house. The long oak table was crowded with roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and a side order of judgment. Harper sat across from me, her blonde hair catching the light like she'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. She had just bought her second SUV. Fully loaded, she made sure to add. Somewhere between her second glass of Chardonnay and the third round of "What's Emily doing these days?" she smirked. "I just don't get why you keep dreaming about cars, you can't even afford bus fare without stressing. A car? That's fantasy territory." Laughter rippled around the table, polite for some, mean-spirited for others. I felt my throat tighten, my fingers gripping the edge of my plate until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to shout, to tell her she was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I stared down at the fork in my hand, its reflection warped and blurry, just like my place in this family. After dessert, I slipped out to the porch for air. My grandmother, Evelyn, joined me, small, wiry, with eyes sharper than any Supercars lines. She handed me a tiny object, a worn silver keychain shaped like a classic Mustang. "Don't waste your fire proving her wrong," she said softly. "Prove yourself right. That's the only race worth winning." The keychain was cool in my palm, the metal edges pressing into my skin. In that moment, something in me shifted. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at their table anymore. I would build my own, and park it in a garage filled with the kind of cars they thought I could never touch. 2 weeks later, I packed my life into 3 cardboard boxes, broke my lease, and left Phoenix without telling a soul where I was going. I landed in Austin with $1,140 to my name, 2 duffel bags, and the Mustang keychain tucked in my pocket like a secret weapon. My first job was at a diner off I-35, 6 a.m. shifts, refilling coffee for truckers and early commuters. I hated the smell of fried bacon clinging to my hair, but I loved the steady paycheck. Every dollar over rent and groceries went into savings. The turning point came on a Tuesday afternoon when a regular, Ms. Lorraine Carter, slid into booth 7. She was in her late 50s, a former racing team manager turned automotive consultant, and she had the kind of presence that made everyone straighten their posture. I'd overheard her once talking about flipping classic cars for profit, so when she asked about my day, I told her my dream, not the sanitized version but the real one. Owning cars, restoring them, building a business around them. Lorraine studied me for a long moment before saying, "If you're serious, come by my shop tomorrow. Wear sneakers." Her shop turned out to be a sprawling warehouse filled with dusty gems, a '67 Camaro, a cherry red Porsche 911, a half-finished Shelby Cobra. She put me to work cleaning parts, taking photos for listings, and sitting in on her negotiations. I learned fast which buyers were serious, how to spot a bad deal, where to find undervalued models. For months, I worked double, mornings at the diner, evenings at Lorraine's. She paid me modestly, but mentored me relentlessly. She taught me about auctions, import regulations, and most importantly, the art of patience in both business and life. My first big break came when Lorraine sent me to an estate sale in Dallas. There, tucked under a dusty tarp, was a '92 Acura NSX in pristine condition. I convinced the executor to let it go for $34,000, then sold it 3 weeks later for $58,000. The profit felt like a fortune. I wired half to my savings and reinvested the rest. From there, I started attending auctions on my own, bidding cautiously but strategically. Every flip taught me something about the market, about negotiation, and about myself. I dealt with plenty of skepticism, especially from older men who assumed I was the assistant or just here for the photo op. I learned to let the deals speak for me. By year 3, I'd quietly built a small but thriving import-export company specializing in high-performance European models. I signed my first warehouse lease, hired 2 mechanics, and expanded into custom restorations. My name started circulating in certain circles, the kind where people asked for Emily Hart when they wanted a rare Ferrari or a limited edition McLaren. And yet, to my family, I was still managing okay. My social media was a careful feed of coffee cups, sunsets, and generic office shots. The only car I ever posted was a modest old Jeep, just to keep up the illusion. It wasn't about secrecy for the sake of drama. It was about holding my success close until I decided the world, and my sister, was ready to see it. Harper pulled into my driveway just after 7, her glossy, white crossover humming to a stop beside the fountain. I caught a glimpse of her in the driver's seat, checking her reflection in the visor mirror, touching up lipstick that was already perfect. I didn't greet her at the front door. Instead, I opened the side entrance, the one that led directly into the garage. "Hey, Em," she said, stepping in, scanning the space. "Wow, this is big." I watched her eyes adjust to the bright, even lighting, watched the moment her gaze snagged on the first car, my metallic sapphire Lamborghini Aventador. Her pace slowed. Her mouth parted. She turned her head, and the rest came into view. The crimson Ferrari F8, the matte black McLaren 720S, the pearl white Bugatti Chiron, the candy apple Porsche 911 Turbo S, the sleek Aston Martin DBS Superleggera. She took a step back as though she'd walked into an art gallery, her eyes darting from polished hood to polished hood. "These are yours." "All of them," I said casually, sliding my hands into the pockets of my tailored slacks. Her head snapped toward me.
Wait.
"You own, Emily, these are worth more than the house," I finished for her. "Yes." I let the silence stretch, giving her time to take in the gleam of the polished floors, the framed vintage racing posters on the walls, the faint scent of leather and high-octane fuel. She shook her head slowly. "But how? Last time we talked, you didn't even own a car?" I tilted my head.
Yeah.
"I remember." Her cheeks colored. She glanced at the Bugatti, then back at me, almost as if trying to calculate my net worth on the spot. "I run an import and restoration business," I said, my tone even, specializing in rare and high-performance models. Clients all over the world. I buy, restore, export. Sometimes I keep the ones I love too much to sell. She blinked. "Since when?" "Since I left Phoenix. About 5 years ago." I watched her take that in, the realization settling over her like a slow-moving shadow. Harper laughed lightly, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, I guess I underestimated you." "That's one way to put it," I replied. The air between us tightened. I could almost hear her sifting through memories, recalculating every conversation we'd had since that night at Mom's. Finally, she looked around again, her voice quieter. "You did all this without telling anyone?" "I wanted to make sure it was real before I shared it," I said. "And I didn't need the commentary along the way." She winced just slightly. I wondered if she remembered her words from that dinner, the ones that had settled like a stone in my chest. Her gaze softened. "I'm proud of you, Em. Really." I mean, this is insane. I gave her a small smile. It's not insane. It's just what happens when you stop letting other people define what you can afford. For a moment, we stood there in the hum of the garage lights, surrounded by the quiet presence of 10 machines that represented every late night, every risk, every win and loss I'd ever taken. Then she spoke again, lighter this time, but with an undercurrent I recognized. So, do you have room for an extra employee? Maybe a family discount. I didn't answer right away. I just gestured toward the door leading into the house. Let's talk over dinner. We settled at my dining table, walnut, handcrafted, the kind of piece you keep for decades. Dinner was simple: grilled salmon, asparagus, a bottle of Napa Cabernet breathing between us. Harper took a sip, her eyes wandering toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the pool. You've really built something here, Em, she said, almost in awe. Then came the pivot. I'm between jobs right now, and honestly, I could use a change. Maybe I could help you out in your business? You know, family working with family. I set my glass down slowly. Help me out or work for me? She hesitated. Work for you.
Sure.
I mean, I've got sales experience. I'm great with clients. I shook my head gently. If you want a position here, you start at the bottom. No special treatment. You'll clean parts, update spreadsheets, make coffee for the mechanics. You'll learn the business from the ground up, the way I did. Her brows knit together. Emily, I have a degree. I'm not above the work? I cut in. I had a degree too, Harper. It didn't keep me from scrubbing oil stains off garage floors. She leaned back, exhaling. So you're saying I'd have to earn it?
Yes.
And not just here. I folded my hands on the table. If you want my help with work, with anything, you're going to have to let go of a few things. The habit of tearing people down when they dream. The assumption that you're always ahead. And the idea that family support is conditional on performance. Her eyes flickered, somewhere between defensive and thoughtful. I'm not punishing you, I continued. I'm offering you the same chance I gave myself, to prove yourself right, not anyone else wrong. It's hard, it's messy, and it's not instant. But if you want it, I'll be there every step of the way. For a moment, she didn't speak. The clink of her fork against the plate was the only sound. Finally, she nodded slowly. Okay, I'll do it. Your way. I smiled. Not the triumphant kind, but the knowing kind. Good. You start Monday. Wear sneakers. She laughed under her breath, maybe realizing I'd just handed her the same phrase Lorraine once gave me. As the night wound down, I walked her back to her car. She glanced at the garage one more time, the row of supercars shimmering under the lights. I could see the wheels turning in her head, not just about the cars, but about the path it might take to stand in a place like this and truly own it. The weeks that followed were different. Harper showed up at the shop every morning at 8, hair pulled back, sneakers on, nails unpolished for the first time in years. The first week, she sorted invoices, wiped down tools, and learned how to catalog incoming parts. By week 3, she could identify the difference between AV8 and AV12 just by the sound. It wasn't smooth sailing. There were moments her old pride tried to flare up. But I watched her bite it back, take a breath, and keep going. It reminded me of my own early days, when I swallowed my ego daily just to make it to the next shift. One Friday afternoon, I found her in the garage, standing next to the Aventador. She was holding the old silver Mustang keychain, turning it over in her palm. You kept this all these years? She asked. I nodded. It was a reminder. Not of her words, but of mine. The promise I made to myself. She ran her thumb over the worn edges, her expression softer than I'd seen in years. You really did it, Em. And you were right. It's not about proving someone wrong. A small smile touched my lips.
No.
It's about driving far enough to become the kind of person you once thought was out of reach. That evening, after she left, I walked through the garage alone. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of polish and fuel. I paused by the Bugatti, catching my reflection in its deep, mirror-like paint. For a moment, I saw not just the woman I was now, but the girl I used to be, tired, broke, carrying her whole life in 2 duffel bags. I reached up and hung the Mustang keychain on a hook above my workbench, where it would always be in sight. It no longer felt like a lifeline. It felt like a trophy. As I turned off the lights, the rows of cars disappeared into shadow, but the feeling stayed, that quiet, unshakable certainty that I had built something no one could take away. In my head, the words came, clear and final, the kind of line that would close a movie. I didn't buy 10 supercars to prove my sister wrong. I bought them to remind myself how far I could drive when I refused to stop.